Myers-Briggs in 1923, noted Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung wrote Physiological Types and outlined his classification of different types of people theory of personality preferences. According to Jung, many of the differences among people did not stem from mental illness, abnormalities, or problems. Rather, he suggested that people had more or less innate ways of relating to the world. These built-in filters would color every social interaction and dictate someone's effectiveness in a particular circumstance or environment. They also help explain to a large degree why we are attracted to or frustrated by other people. Jung's very dense writing style unfortunately made his work inaccessible to most readers, and it languished for many years. This research was picked up and expanded in the 1930s by Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers. They worked through World War II to develop a specific testing tool that would classify people reliably according to Jung's basic theory. They culled through thousands of potential questions, and were able to tease out ones that predicted personality types reliably. The final questionnaire and rating method was named the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator MBTI. The MBTI examines people on 4 independent scales. Each scale is anchored by 2 opposite extremes. Where someone falls on a particular scale is not supposed to change over the course of a lifetime. In other words, your basic personality type is pretty much set in stone. This does not mean that as you learn and grow you will not express your type differently. It only means that your underlying worldview shifts very slowly. Each of the scales, also called dichotomies, that follow indicates preferences and tendencies only. Very few people are the caricatures typically described by the 2 extremes of each scale. There are no value judgments associated with someone's innate type. Obviously, each evolved and took hold in a significant portion of the human population, because it had some kind of evolutionary or survival value. None of the types are absolutely better or worse than others. The main goal of the Myers-Briggs method is to understand yourself. Through MBTI you can predict how you might perform in a specific environment or role. It also gives you the basis to find effective communication strategies with people of a different type. It is beyond the scope of this book to go into detail about this field. The following sketches are meant simply to illustrate the basic concepts and taxonomy of the MBTI. The source of energy, extroverts E versus introverts I. Extroverts draw their energy from the outside world and other people. They love social interactions, and are gregarious and communicative. They expend a lot of personal energy, and tend to speak before thinking. Introverts prefer limited social relationships. They conserve their personal energy, and are more internal and focused. Introverts are more reflective, and notice their own internal reactions to events. They tend to think first and then speak. Information gathering, sensors S versus intuitives and sensors live in the present moment. They prefer orderly sequential planning, and are practical, down-to-earth people, who pride themselves in being realistic. They insist on what is actual and specific. Intuitives live in the future world of possibilities. They are conceptual, scattered, and like to see the big picture. They are comfortable with randomness and disorder, and are often viewed as impractical dreamers. Information processing, thinkers T versus feelers F. Thinkers tend to be objective and just. They prefer the clarity and detachment provided by firm rules, and they are not afraid to critique others. Feelers are subjective and social. They prefer to be involved, and operate based on harmony and social values. They try to mediate based on the changing circumstances and come to conclusions that are deemed to be humane and that maintain harmony. Lifestyle orientation, judgers J versus perceivers P. Judgers like control, definitiveness, closure, and structure. They plan, resolve, and decide the smallest aspects of their lives. They like to schedule their time and are comfortable meeting specific deadlines. Perceivers prefer flexibility and a tentative, open-ended orientation to making decisions. They are adaptable and spontaneous, and do not like to be hemmed in by deadlines. The resulting 4 components can be combined in 16 individual personality types or role variants. By convention, a descriptive profession has been attached to each one along with a label describing the primary orientation: teacher ENFJ, educating; counselor INFJ, guiding; champion ENFP, motivating; healer INFP, conciliating; field marshal ENTJ, mobilizing; mastermind INTJ, entailing; inventor ENTP, devising; architect INTP, designing; supervisor ESTJ, enforcing; inspector ISTJ, certifying; provider ESFJ, supplying; protector ISFJ, securing; promoter ESTP, persuading; crafter ISTP, instrumenting; performer ESFP, demonstrating; composer ISFP, synthesizing. Kiersey Bates. While Myers and Briggs focused on people's internal mental states, David Kiersey and Marilyn Bates focused more on easily observable behavior patterns. This led Kiersey to develop a descriptive temperament framework that he later merged with the MBTI. He focused on the primary S- and abstract concrete dimension, which he mapped to the observant and introspective qualities, respectively. These were combined with another dimension, cooperative utilitarian, to create the 4 primary temperaments of the Kiersey temperaments order: artisans SP, tactical observant and pragmatic; guardians SJ, logistical observant and cooperative; idealists NF, diplomatic introspective and cooperative; rationals NT, strategic introspective and pragmatic. For purposes of web design, the 4 temperaments are a much more manageable set. It is difficult to try to consider 16 distinct personality types. Platinum Rule. Dr. Tony Alessandra states his Platinum Rule as follows: do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Like other personality typing and behavioral frameworks, he seeks to clarify people's operating styles. Like Kiersey, Alessandra focuses on observable behaviors, and provides us with two primary dimensions, open versus guarded, direct versus indirect. The resulting quadrants form the four foundational styles. Like the MBTI, there are two additional scales to further subdivide each quadrant into 16 total styles. The primary styles are Relator indirect open, Thinker indirect guarded, Socializer direct open, Director direct guarded. See page 85. One of the key uses of this framework is for adapting a sales presentation or process to an individual's style, so among behavioral frameworks it is especially well suited for persuading or selling on the web. For additional information, please visit the website platinum.com. User-centered design. During my cognitive science undergraduate studies at UC San Diego in the mid-1980s, I had the pleasure of taking classes from Dr. Don Norman. He is considered one of the foremost usability experts in the world, and is the originator of user-centered design (UCD). UCD is an approach to designing objects and interfaces that considers the needs, desires, and perspectives of the intended users as primary. Instead of enforcing the designer's view of the world on the users, this approach tries to adapt to the way that users actually want to use the product in question. It is an iterative approach that refines the existing design through a series of progressively more effective versions. Significant research is conducted upfront to understand the needs and goals of the intended user audience. Each revision is tested on actual intended users to see if the designer's underlying assumptions hold up, and to see whether the design meets the stated measurable performance criteria. Real testing is necessary, because it is often difficult or impossible for the designers to step outside of their own competencies. Because they are so familiar with the design, they cannot imagine what novel first-time users may do, or how their behavior may change once they have been repeatedly exposed to the design. A series of specific user interactions can form a larger user experience (UX). For example, an e-commerce site may require a user to add an item to the shopping cart, specify a shipping address, and correctly enter payment information. These individual interactions combine into a larger checking out user experience. Each of the component interactions must be usable, and must also combine into an overall effective user experience. Usability testing. At the heart of UCD is usability testing. During this process, representative users are given a prototype or mock-up of your design, and asked to complete a specific task. The number of users is typically small, 3 to 6. A specific task, also called a use case or scenario, is developed with objective measurable goals and tied to the overall business objectives, and the user is asked to complete the task. The designers quietly observe the test and optionally record it or take handwritten notes. The test is often carried out on a non-functional prototype, a wireframe model, or even on a hand-drawn flipchart representation of the product. This allows the users to focus on the task and not worry about offending the designers, who have invested a lot of time in preparing it. There is less invested in such early-stage prototypes, and they are easy to discard, refine, and modify. The real product build should not happen until the testing goals have been achieved and a workable design identified. If the goal for the task has been met, the testing is complete and the current design is adopted. If the goal has not been met, the designers include their learnings from the current test in a revised design, to be used for the next test.